Okay, everybody, we are going to get started. 1 second, I'm just going to unmute our panelists here. All right, everybody is now unmuted. I am going to give a brief introduction, explain how this whole thing works, because I'm sure some of you are participating in a webinar for the first time. And then we will get started and we'll do a presentation from some of the panelists and then answer as many questions as we possibly can. My name is Kevin Elkins. I am Congressman Rose's district director. Thank you for joining the call. I apologize that Max can't be here today. Many of you might have heard he's deployed with the National Guard, standing up some COVID hospitals here in our district. And so I'm gonna be the moderator for today. I'm going to sort of walk you through now how this is going to work. If you look at your screen, for those of you who have a laptop or are using your phone or the app, you will see that there are the option to ask questions, Q&A. I would encourage you to put your questions there if you have not already pre-submitted your questions. The pre-submitted questions will go first at the end of this presentation, and then we'll get to all of your Q&A as well. There is a chat room, which some of you are already utilizing. I would point out there is a feature, I believe, for everybody that it allows you to send to all panelists and attendees. The default is just panelists. So if you want everybody in the chat to see something or a question of yours or something to that effect, please put it to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, it'll just be me seeing it, which is okay as well, but just so you're aware. And I believe that is the biggest things. Again, you will not see yourself on this screen. So if you do not be concerned about that. If I'm not able to communicate your question correctly, just put it in the chat room. And if need be, I can probably bring you up here and activate your webcam so you'll be able to talk to people as well. And so that's the basics of how this is going to work. And let me just pulling up one quick note. I'm sorry. All right. And so right before I pass it over to Dean, I just wanted on behalf of the Congressman say, we've heard a lot of what you are going through as small business owners or nonprofit executives. This is something none of you had a chance to prepare for. It came out in many respects. Is something no one saw coming as a small business owner or nonprofit owner. So this is unprecedented. We understand there's a tremendous amount of fear and confusion. And I want to assure you on behalf of Max that our office will be with you every step of the way. If there's something we can't do, we'll put you in touch with someone who can. If we don't know of an answer, we will find it. To be completely frank with you, there is no model that our office is following or a precedent to deal with a pandemic of this scale or an economic crisis of this scale. But what we can do is what we've always done, and that's run through a wall if need be on your behalf. So this webinar is going to talk about the federal resources available to small businesses and nonprofits affected by this pandemic. As a business or a nonprofit, I know you've all had to make different choices. Some of you have had to lay people off in order to stay afloat. Some of you might have been able to keep employees on. Some of you are concerned about how you're going to pay rent, and others have had to shut down completely. So we know there's a ton of different challenges that you all are facing unique to your business. We're going to try and answer as many questions as we can. If we can't answer it today, we are here for you no matter what. You can follow up with us, even if it's something you don't think of today. You can give us a call and we'll be there to help track you down and answer. I want to give a thank you and shout out to the panelists, Dean Balsami, the director of the Small Business Development Center at CSI, John Milano, the deputy director of the New York District Office of the Small Business Administration. They're joined by Sylvia Rivera, the economic development specialist at SBA, and Megan Baran, a marketing business advisor at Staten Island Small Business Development Center. Thank you guys for giving a chance to help our constituents here on Staten Island and in Brooklyn. The CARE Act, which is what the federal government just passed, included specifically more than $377 billion for a small business rescue plan. Included among that is the SBA is now empowered to give economic injury disaster loans, and most importantly, disaster grants to help businesses stay afloat. These grants provide an emergency advance of up to $10,000 to small businesses and private nonprofits harmed by the pandemic within 3 days of applying for that loan. The panelists are going to get into that and a whole bunch of other resources and information. Details about these resources are going to be in your resource packet, which was sent to your registrants. If you did not get it, please post in the chat room, or you could just wait, and we will be sure to send that around afterwards to everybody who registered for this. One thing I do want to flag, because of the huge and sudden nature of everybody who's going to be applying for this grant, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some hiccups on the federal level. We're seeing some of that play out with unemployment insurance in the state. I want to assure you that we will be there to help when that happens. Max does not care if it's the president, the governor, or the mayor's administration causing the problem. It doesn't matter if it's a bank or an agency. None of that matters. We're not here to blame figures or care about party. We're going to be here to help you every step of the way. You will not be left behind. There's still going to be more that needs to be done in DC. We're working on another bill already that's hopefully will provide more relief. The previous bills have been historic, but I know if I ask any of you individually, you'll say it's not enough, and you're right on that. So we got to keep fighting for that, and we will continue to keep fighting for that. On that note, I will like to turn it over to Dean.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. This is a very interesting opportunity. I say interesting for a variety of different reasons. I just got off a conference call with my folks at 11 o'clock from the SBDC actually in Albany and right around the state. So let me explain a little bit more about who we are and what we do. And I also want to thank the team. I mean, great work for Simon, Hector, and Kevin to put this together. It's probably one of the first ones that are being done during this period of time. For example, today, it's April 3rd, and this is the whole initial process beginning on a number of the opportunities. I want to caution you that everything is very fluid. There'll be some questions that we may not be able to answer. The way we will do it, I want to also welcome my compatriot, John Milano from the SBA, who will answer all the SBA questions. So the opportunity for me is to tell you what we do as a resource partner, the Small Business Development Center. We've been here on Staten Island since 1993. Next slide, please. And bottom line would be, talk about who we are, what we're doing. This is my team. We've actually talked to a lot of you folks that are already in the audience. I know that or online. We're all operating from home since the issue related to CSI and all over with distance learning has taken us all at home. Most of you are doing the same thing. But the team is comprised of George Telmany, Angela Chuppy, Megan Ernst Barron, Joe Muller, Joe Bottega, and Ed Pisco. And I'm lurking around in the background there. The bottom line here, though, the reason I mention them individually, you may have already spoken to my folks. Over the last week and a half to 2 weeks, we've handled over 580 inquiries, just about the act, the anticipation of it, and a variety of other areas. Now, two things I wanted to emphasize. The first one, we've basically been through the whole situation with 9/11. We've been through Superstorm Sandy, which was a major one, involved a lot of you in the audience as well. And we thought that was a monster affair, and it was. And bottom line now is we're into a whole other netherworld that you all know, and we're all part of it. And that's the interesting part of how this goes. I like to think of what we do as, I like to look at it basically from, it's half full. Well, I mean, we were involved in the past. We knew what we had to do to get us past the major crisis. We did it, but during that period of time, we were also working with a lot of the small businesses to talk about how we would be able to redevelop, move forward, get the opportunity to get businesses back on their feet, because it's all about, I mean, we actually have resources here on Staten Island and also in Brooklyn to service the 11th CD, which is Max's area. So I mention that because some of you may not know who we are and what we do. But what we offer is business planning, disaster recovery and building, which is what we are doing right now in terms of getting the data, working with the data. And we mention this because we also want to look at how do we do forward planning when things turn right in a month or two, hopefully. Cost analysis, some of the details related to financial management. We have a market research arm in our Albany office, and how we work with marketing plans. But before we leave that, I should really tell you that we are a national organization of over 1,000 SBDCs around the country. So right now, similar activities are taking place throughout the whole country. There are 23 service centers that we have throughout New York State and 7 within the New York City area. So we have an opportunity to share issues. I mentioned the conference call I just got off. There's a whole list of questions that be peppered around. And the issues right now are compliance. How do we've got the data, we have the information, but now we're going to be able to talk a little bit more, and John will address the issues on the Q&As as to how and when we are ready. And in some cases, there are some issues that we won't be able to resolve because, you know, it requires compliance along the line, including all the players, small businesses, ourselves, the banks, and a variety of issues. So hopefully we can get to a good portion of your questions, but if not, as was said before by we will probably be able to do that fairly quickly, you know, as we respond. So next slide, please. What we are is a cost-effective way to create jobs, grow the economy, enhance competitiveness. And, you know, the real point, really, when we talk about fulfilling the American dream, we are dealing with different types of demographics. We're dealing with children, 18 or so, I call them children. They're about ready to graduate, get into college. We're working with programs with our partners, the SBA. We are working with Linda Barron and the Chamber. We're working with the SIEDC. We're working a cross-section of the business groups like the Bucks. I'm past president of my Rotary. We're working with the 5 Rotaries around Staten Island. Through my, some of my folks are in Rotary as well. The people that I showed you as a picture have extensive background in disaster planning. They also, 2 of them are former bankers. So we have the resources to be able to help and actually get to the issues that are affecting all of you folks. Small businesses really drive the economy, as we all know. That's a cliche, but it's true. So we're in that position to be able to help based on experience. So during the past situation, we were able to help substantially during the situation with Superstorm Sandy. Evolving to now where we are almost about 8 years later, we're in a similar situation, but not quite. It's more extensive, it's more individual. We have issues and both at home and at business. So we want to deal with those that we can help. So far, we've dealt with over 9,800 businesses. We've been able to generate $202 million of investment through those businesses in the area's economy. And those really created somewhere over 6,000 types of jobs, which are really critical. And, you know, we're coming from an economy that was very robust right now to where we will need to be once this is over. And we feel we play an ingredient role as a resource partner of the SBA. And in working with the other partners around the island and our contacts, I believe we can do that exceptionally well. Next slide, please. We mentioned business planning, marketing. Market research is really critical because one of the things that will happen as we recoup, as we're back on our feet, we will need the opportunity to see how do our markets shape up? Are they different? What are some of the ways we need to get some more data and intelligence? And we could do that. We have a research arm in Albany that provides assistance, and we've done that already with many of the businesses that are here. The MWBE program, which we will also support and work with our partners over at SBS and others. We have a program called Entree Skills. One of the benefits for this is to be online and have the opportunity to work online, and for the fledglings developing a new business that's an opportunity to work the business plan from that vantage point. There are cost analysis and financial management that's going to be required. Right now, we've done a lot of spreadsheet and support information for clients that have needed support just prior to, and even now where clients are saying, how do I do this? How do I work the issues? How do I fill out the form? How do I get to a certain point in time that I feel that we've accomplished what we need to do and moving forward? And all of those come into play. When we recover, as we are trying to get to it at a point in time in the next few months, we have a program called BidLinks, which has us assist businesses and how they might access other business and navigate the state, federal, and city contracts because it is sometimes daunting to several people. And then, as I mentioned, we work with the high-tech startups. Being at the College of Staten Island, we have the opportunity to work with with our incubator, which actually exists on Bay Street and in a supportive environment. I'm looking at the opportunity to gravitate beyond the core right on this piece to say, we will be better when we get over this, and we will be there with you to help. In the meanwhile, we'll also be helping you during this period of time. The next slide, please. Resources, we mentioned the SBA, CSI, which has been wonderful in terms of the support that we've got there. And by the way, I mentioned CSI, but each one of the New York City and actually throughout the state are located in campus environments. So for example, in New York City, we have Columbia, and we also have Pace University, private universities, and the CUNY schools. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, our mission is very, very, very supportive. We look at each client as a customized potential for a customized solution. So we either do it through advisement, education, research, and advocacy. And the advocacy comes in a number of different ways. Just like what we're doing today, it's a great job the Congressman is doing. This is one of the first webinars, by the way, we're doing, other than what we did last week with our partners with the Chamber, because now we're in a real world environment where lots of things are flowing and lots of issues regarding to, will the banks support this? Do they have to go through their boards of directors to get finalization on final approval? What will the turnout be? A lot of those may not be able to be answered today, but we will assist and work with people as soon as we get those answers. And I'm hoping that John can fill us in further on where we are, because this is really a very fluid situation. We mentioned before about the businesses, so I think you're aware of that, what we are and what we've been doing in the over the last several years. So can I get the next slide, please? Okay, we got the website, how you can reach us. Actually, I'll also mention one other thing. Our telephone contact is still available, 718-982-2560. Why I say that is we have one of my team who will monitor the calls, and we will try to get back to you as fast as we can to get feedback and try to help you out with your situation and have one of the advisors follow you up. So there's the website information, and we'll talk more about that later. Next slide. I guess that's probably going to be it. I don't want to get into the other details on the resources, but just to mention, with New York City, the fund is closing today. The retention grant closes at 5 p.m. but there's a migration strategy from that with the SBA, which is really migrating that over to the from the SBS to the SBA. So with that, I'm going to ask John Milano, because we'll save the resources piece near the end, where we'll cover all of the SBA pieces. Evan? Hector?
There we go. Before I turn it over to John, just to remind everybody, if you're on the webinar, there is the Q&A section right below where everybody's talking. You should see it. You can put your question in there. It's better than the chat room. I'll try and monitor the chat room for questions that come in, but it could be a lot of conversations in there, so it might get lost. So please try to use the Q&A section. If I believe I also have some people raising their hand, which is a thing you could do on the app. I will also reach out to you guys if your question has not been answered by the end as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And thank you for Congressman Rose for inviting us. And thanks for Dean and his staff for being here. And I just want to give a special thank to Sylvia Rivera, who is on my team here in the New York District Office. So we have a lot of programs right now that are currently going on. Some of them are not fully functional. Most of them did start today. So the first one I want to discuss about is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or what we call the EIDL loan. So to qualify for that, it's self-employed individuals, independent contractors, sole proprietors, and businesses and also not-for-profits with fewer than 500 employees. This program is directly lent directly from the SBA through our disaster loan program. And to apply for that loan, you would go to sba.gov/disaster, and you would get that information. And also there would be an application there online for you to fill out. The terms of this loan is up to 30 years. You can get up to $2 million. The interest rates on this loan is 3.75% for businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits. If you have any loan up to $25,000, does not have to be collateralized. So we give loans for up to $25,000 totally unsecured. So when we ask for collateral, we don't have to necessarily be the first person on the collateral. We'll take second or third position on it. So it's not important to primarily be first position when it comes to collateral. No personal guarantees for any loan up to $200,000. And there's a 1-year payment deferral. So you won't have to make any payments for the first year on the loan. The loan availability runs from January 31st all the way through December 31st, 2020. So what is this program used for? It's used for pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills that cannot be paid because of the disaster's impact on your business. The only thing this cannot be used for is to refinance existing debt. So the other program that we have, which goes hand in hand with the EIDL loan, is the EIDL grant, and that goes up to $10,000. That also is applied online, and you apply for it the same way at the same time as you do for the EIDL loan. And the qualifications are the same: self-employed individuals and not-for-profits with less than 500 employees. That grant will go up to $10,000. Applicants should not be required to pay any advance payments. And if you are denied for the EIDL loan, you can still go back in and apply for the EIDL debt forgiveness advance. And this is for the same thing. This basically, the whole purpose for this advance is to try to get the ability to pay for payroll. So it includes for providing for sick leave to employees, maintaining payroll, maintaining increased cost, making rent payments, and repaying obligations that can't be met due to the revenue losses due to this crisis. Another program I want to discuss quickly is something that is not that popular, but it's out there. It's called the SBA Express Bridge Loan. So we are giving out SBA Express Bridge Loans, and you can get this from your local bank, and most banks in New York State are all SBA lenders. And this is a bridge loan for while you are waiting for either your injury loan or any other type of loan that you're waiting for to try to get your business up and running. And that's for up to $25,000, and that goes for a maximum of 7 years. Okay, so now this bridge loan can be paid through from the EIDL loan. So if you do get approved for the bridge loan, and then afterwards you get an SBA EIDL loan, you could then go back and repay this bridge loan with your SBA EIDL loan. So there also is some debt relief that SBA is giving to existing small businesses that have 7A loans, 504 loans, and micro loans. So this is an automatic deferral. So anybody who has a SBA 7A loan, the SBA will make all your interest and principal payments for the next 6 months. You don't have to do anything. I would advise that you contact your lender if you plan on missing your loans, but these payments will be made automatically through the SBA Small Business Debt Relief Program. Now, this program also lasts all the way through December 27, 2020, and will make 6 months worth of payments on your existing SBA loans. Now, the most popular program, and the one that started today, and the one that most people have the questions for, and I don't have all the answers for, unfortunately, is the SBA's Paycheck Protection Program, also known as PPP. So to be eligible for that program, you must be a self-employed individual, independent contractor, sole proprietor or business, not-for-profit with less than 500 employees. Now, these loans are done through SBA-approved lenders. There is also a process right now currently to get non-SBA-approved lenders approved so they can also participate in the program. The term of this loan is for 2 years, and the amount that you will receive is based on your prior 12 months payroll. You would take your average monthly payroll and multiply it by 2.5%. So that would be the amount that you would have to, that's the amount that you'd be eligible for. The interest on this loan is 1%. The maximum that you can get on this loan is $10 million. And there's a deferral payment on this loan also for up to 6 months. Now, there's a forgiveness clause on this loan. And the way it works is that if you use 75% of those funds for the next 8 weeks to pay payroll, the total loan will be forgiven. So you won't have any payment for those loans. And they include employee salaries and benefits. That includes sick leave, medical leave, insurance premiums, and you can also pay your mortgage rent, utility, and your mortgage interest on those applications. And also the loan forgiveness on this loan will not be taxable income to you at the end of the year. That's pretty much the programs that we have really quick. So if we have any questions, we'd be glad to take them from you.
All right, everybody. We're going to now move into the Q&A section. We have about 35 questions already. I'm sure more will come as they are being asked. And so, one second, I'm just making a quick adjustment to this. All right. Okay. And we will go through each question as soon as possible. And get you guys as much answers as we can in this time period. Also, again, this is being recorded. We will distribute it to everybody afterwards. If there's questions that we don't have an answer to, we will reach out to you afterwards. As John and Dean spoke about, this is pretty unprecedented stuff. So there is a lot of shifting dynamics, guidelines being written, and what have you on the fly. But we are going to be here to help you through this process. And again, we'll make sure whatever we can do, we will do on your behalf. So I'm going to go to the first question, and any of the panelists feel free to take it. This is from Christina and Benedetto Casali from Casali Tile Company. We have rental properties, both residential and commercial. They have 2 questions. How do I get money for the businesses, which you guys sort of touched on already? How will I be able to pay our mortgage and our real estate taxes if my tenants stop paying rent? And if some of my tenants are government employees, are they allowed to stop paying rent? I think there is a couple different questions in there, but if John or Dean or Megan and Sylvia, if you want to touch on any of those, please feel free.
Well, for their business, they can obviously apply for the programs that are available to them. I would strongly recommend that every business apply for the economic injury disaster loan. And I told you that's on that website, sba.gov/disaster. There is up to a $10,000 grant that people are eligible to help their small businesses. As for when it comes to rent, unfortunately, there's no program specifically for getting your tenants to pay rent. But the whole theory behind it is that the more money that we get to people who are who are not on payroll, and get them back on payroll, they'll continue to pay their debts too. So that's the whole purpose behind trying to get people paid as quickly as possible.
And then when it comes to the government not being able to pay rent, I'd be surprised if that's the case. I would expect the government to be able to continue to do so. If you run into any issues with that, please reach out to our office and we can reach out to the relevant agency. This is from George Klein from Downing Klein Insurance. He's been trying to reach his banker at Capital One to submit a paycheck protection program application, but the bank has been unresponsive. The branches are closed, and he's understanding that he's supposed to make this application through a bank SBA partner, but the only bank that will handle this is where his commercial account is located. Is there any way to make the application directly with the SBA? His bank has responded they don't have details from SBA to administer it yet, so can he apply directly to the SBA?
So the answer is that program just went into effect today. So there's still a lot of details on it that the banks are waiting for to get information on. So you have to be a little bit patient with them. Unfortunately, you cannot apply directly to SBA for the principal protection, the payroll protection program, also known as PPP. But most banks are doing them online and are notifying their banks currently, that means their current depositors currently, to let them know when it's available. So I would just ask you to be a little more patient and understand that a lot of the regulations that just came out, I don't know if anybody saw the president with our SBA administrator and Mnuchin from Treasury was on late in the evening yesterday. So they're still working on details. And I think a lot of the banks are currently trying to scramble through and try to figure out what the information is.
John, I might add to that anecdotally, we've heard but several banks are mulling it over, just as you said, in the vicinity. But later on, when we close out, there is a bank locator that you can use by zip code, and you might be able to identify some of the banks in the area and have an opportunity to check those, because again, it's very, very fluid. And a couple of, in reaching out to some of our sources, they've just indicated to us that they have some decision-making to do, whether in fact this is going to be a board decision in some cases, or whether the banks that are not SBA approved are going to be able to make that choice. So again, it is a very fluid situation. I know that's, you don't want to hear it that way, but that's exactly what it is today. It may change by Monday.
Got it. The next question is from Paul Dietrich from the American Legion. They are a 501c19 organization. We have lost all their income from hall rentals as well as their bell jar, yet they still have to pay utility expenses. Are any of those items covered? And if so, what would be the process for filing?
I don't know.
So that process would be, they would have to go online and apply for the economic injury disaster loan at sba.gov/disaster. And that's specifically there to help you pay for reoccurring expenses that you don't have the ability to pay for currently.
And the interest rate is 2.75, right?
2.75% for not-for-profits, correct?
Right. It's lower than the other, exactly.
Yes, it is.
The next question is, as someone asking as a landlord, this one might be a little bit of a unique circumstance, but Hector, who is from our office, is also on the line, and he can talk a little bit about some of the issues that have been coming up with tenant protections, relief for landlords and for tenants. The question is, I'm a landlord, and for the past 6 months, they haven't received rent from the tenant. Now that evictions are postponed, will I receive any relief for this? That one might be sort of really unique, but if anybody feel free to answer, and if it's sort of a specific thing, we'll reach out to the constituent afterwards. But would anybody like to touch on that in general?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of landlords and tenants, are in an untenable situation. There is a moratorium on evictions, and while our guidance to tenants has been to pay your rent, in addition to the mortgage forbearance, this moratorium on evictions serves as a buffer. That said, some of the guidance that we've suggested to a lot of these are 1099 workers who could be eligible for PPP. I would really investigate if you're a landlord, if you're a sole proprietor, there might be SBA options available to you. In addition, there's a New York City program, a property tax deferral, which we'll send out information on after this webinar, where if you're a New York City resident, a homeowner of a specific type of multifamily property, you are able to defer real estate taxes in certain circumstances if you're eligible. Those are some of the things outlined. I do think that the governor will issue some updated guidance on this in the coming weeks, and we'll keep you informed as that develops.
Great, thank you, Hector. Can you apply for an EIDL and PPP? Also, can you apply for SBA programs as well as the city and grant loans?
Okay, so there is something out there called coordination of benefits. So you can and you should apply for the EIDL loan, and you should apply for the PPP loan. And you can always decide whether or not to opt out one of them. What you can't do is use money for the same purpose from two different sources. For example, if you get money for payroll through the payroll protection program, you will not be able to take an EIDL loan and also pay your employees' payroll or pay rent. So they have to be for separate and distinct expenses. So the answer is yes, you should apply for both, but you can't use the resources to pay the same expenses.
That's correct.
Great. This is from Christopher, and I apologize if I say your name wrong. Genoopoulos. Allowable monthly payroll. Is the gross payroll less than $100,000 annualized payroll taxes? If I understand I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I understand this correctly. I understand employer federal payroll taxes are not to be added to gross payroll taxes. Are we expected to remove 7.65% for amounts paid by employees? Did you guys get that?
When they figure out their payroll, they should figure out all expenses included into the payroll, and you should take the 12 previous months and divide it by 12, and then multiply it by 2.5 to get the amount that you should apply for on your loan. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
For the PPP loan, the application asks for payroll for 2019. How do I include a new employee's payroll who started in January 2020 for the 2.5 calculation?
Okay, so you can use the prior 12 months. So as long as the employee was employed before February 15th, you can include them into the calculation when you figure out your payroll for your average monthly payroll for the month. So if you have a short period of time, you don't have an employee on for 1 month, you would add that amount to your average payroll from the previous year. So for example, if last year your whole payroll was $120,000, and that would come out to $100,000 a month, then what you do is you'd have one employee that you added in January, and his monthly payroll would be $10,000. You would just add that $10,000 and multiply that by 2.5%, so that you could include the current new employee.
Okay.
Great. I believe we answered this one, but I just want to make sure. Can we apply for the New York City Employee Retention Grant and the Payroll Protection Program?
We're federal.
I believe you can, and I think that it's probably a good opportunity to do that. But one of the other things that related to the prior question also comes into play is, and I hate to do that to a question, but John, I wanted to mention this related to the past one that we just answered. What if you have not filed your 2019, of course, the 2019 taxes yet? You can use the 2018 taxes as your baseline.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that point. Sorry.
This question is from Randy Piers. If your bank is not an SBA lender, or if you don't have a credit line with your bank, how can you apply for a payroll protection program loan?
Nothing to do with that.
Banks don't seem to be open right now for new customers. That seems to be the main concern.
Okay, so like I said, we are going through some of those situations currently. So there is a process in place to get non-SBA approved banks to participate in this program. So those resources just literally came out at about 12 o'clock this afternoon, and that information is being dispersed right now to all of those non-SBA approved lenders, so they also may participate. And what that'll do is that'll open up the opportunity for more businesses to get loans.
Yeah.
Great. Here's a question that we sort of talked about briefly in the introductions. The grant loan advance was not dispersed within 3 days. Should we expect a delay, or is there a problem that requires us to call the SBA?
Approve first. I'm sorry, it has to be approved before they disperse it. Once it's approved, then it'll take about 3 days for them to direct deposit it.
Got it. So it's 3 days after approval, not 3 days
Right.
from application.
Correct.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This is a question for the SBDC. Is it specific to Staten Island resident businesses only, or do you help outside? So for our Brooklyn constituents.
Sure. Thank you very much. Well, we do. My area, I have all responsibility for Staten Island and Southwest Brooklyn. In effect, it's the CD, the 11th CD. But we have offices, as I mentioned, throughout the metropolitan area and actually the country, but 23 in New York State. But what happens is we'll get calls from out of state, and what we'll do is we'll evaluate them and also support them. And if we need to then get one of the centers that are out of state, we'll contact them and actually have them follow up with the client. So a client doesn't have to feel, let's assume somebody's living in Florida, but they also have a place here. And I'm not sure where their permanent home is, but let's say it is Florida because of tax reasons. They could get a hold of us and we'd provide that kind of initial support and then work with them if they really need something in the other state. But it's primarily going to be the state where you reside. And in this case, it's our borough, but we have facilities throughout the other boroughs as well.
Exactly.
Great. Mark Giaclone. He's currently a banker, and he has a couple of small business clients interested in a disaster SBA loan. These particular companies are U.S. subsidiaries owned by foreign parent companies. They have U.S. employees working for them. Do these new stimulus package SBA loans require personal guarantors who hold either a U.S. citizenship or permanent resident alien residency status?
So in order to qualify for any assistance through the SBA, a person has to be a U.S. citizen, a legal resident, which would be a green card holder, or someone who has refugee or asylum status. Those are the qualifications for foreigners.
Great, thank you. I see the New York City Employee Retention Grant closes today, but is the Small Business Continuity Loan ongoing?
Yes.
I believe- Go ahead.
Yep.
ahead,
The
Megan.
continuity loan is still open for applications.
Right.
Great. Can you, this is for John and Dean, if you can just give your contact information for people to reach out to, or your organization's contact information one more time?
Sure.
Well, what I'll
And
do
just
is,
and just to note, we'll also include that in an email after this as well.
Perfect. Go ahead, John. Do you want to do yours? And
so
then
what I'll
give
do
you-
is I'll actually, so that you can actually get help on these programs, I'll give you the number to our disaster center, so they would be able to help you with your current business, and that's 1-800-659-2955.
Great. And by the last slide that we'll have today, we'll also have the contact information again, but I'll give it to you now. It's 718-982-2560. I realize that's the phone number. We monitor those. But then we also have our website information, which is www.sisbdc.org. So you can get us that way as well. And you can also send an email to our address if you like. And you can send it to me. And it's dean.balsamini@csi.cuny.edu. Now, I don't want to get overloaded, but if you need something immediately, and we'll get it, take a look at it and talk to our advisors and see what we could do for you. Okay?
And our team is also fielding all requests through the main SBDC email, which is sbdc@csi.cuny.edu. This is also listed in the information packet that Hector and Kevin have circulated too.
And you can also reach me, Sylvia Rivera, at sba.gov,
That's
and I
right.
answer all my emails.
Yes, that's right.
What is
Okay.
this is from Barbara Devani. Hi, Barbara. What is the deadline for the small business assistance for companies with 100 or less employees?
Which one?
Well,
The P3, I'm sorry, the P3 ends on June 30th of 2020, and the EIDL is till September 30th?
December 31st, 2020.
December 31st? Okay, 2020.
And it's
That's
for
for
less
the
than
economic
500.
injury disaster. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's for less than 500 employees, not 100.
Got it. And Barbara, if there was any specific ones you wanted to know about, just shoot me an email. And we'll get that answered for you. This is from Theta. If I open my hair salon next week for Easter, is it going to be a problem? Yes. If any of you have a business that's been closed by the executive order, do not open it. That'd be a violation of the law. How are businesses with tax liens who own taxes supposed to qualify for loans? Most small businesses have one or both of these situations.
In that case, if you have a payment plan, this shouldn't be a problem. However, you'd have to take that up with your lender.
As long as they have a payment plan and they're current with their obligation, and they're not negligent with it, they still qualify for the programs.
Great. Will this webinar be available? Yes, it will be for others if you want to send it. I'm almost done filling the application. I thought it was just 10,000. Linda, the question's not that clear. If you want to retry it again in the webinar chat, I'd be happy to answer. That's for Linda Dolan. What banks are SBA banks on Staten Island? I went to Northfield today. They're not ready. I contacted my bank. They are not approved yet. I think this gets to John's point that this is they're building the airplane as we are flying it. So there's going to be some delays there, but I don't know if anybody wants to.
Well,
So
Go ahead,
I'll tell
John.
you this really quick. Sorry, Dean.
Okay.
On our website at sba.gov/paycheck protection, there is a link there where you can put in your zip code, and you could find lenders in your areas who will be participating in the Paycheck Protection Program. Also, an easier way to find it is you can go to Google and just type in the word lender match, and that'll come up also. But let me tell you something really quickly, is that while there are participating lenders already on there are a lot of lenders that are currently trying to get approved as we speak right now So that list is going to change. So I'm going to recommend that you check back there and find out which lenders over the weekend. I would say that you check back there and see which lenders are available in your area.
John, if
John,
I can add to that too, we've had a few clients speak to us this morning about how they've contacted their local lenders, even some that are participating, and they're getting information. They're setting up the portals to submit the applications today. So while the applications are open today, they might have to wait until Monday or mid part of next week until the portals are ready to go. So I would definitely encourage you to keep in contact with your lenders and see how it goes.
Yeah, just interject another point. Someone asked the question about SBA approved lenders. What other banks? And we're talking about Empire State Bank, which is an approved lender. Whether they're participating in the program immediately or not has to be decided by them. And of course, you know, that's option. But you asked the question. I wanted to make sure you got the response.
Also, if you email me at sylvia.rivera@sba.gov, I can send you a list of the participating lenders with SBA. Okay?
Great.
Good.
This one might need some more clarification from Adivya, and unless one of you guys get it. If you're not on the list of SBA approved lists, how do we apply? Mine is a 7-Eleven. I don't know if that's enough information to answer.
So I think what they're asking is that there are certain franchises that were excluded because of what's called a control issue when it comes to franchises. And they've excluded a lot of those. So they've allowed individual franchisees to apply for the loan. So for example, a lot of these restaurants and hotels, they have chains and they have more than 500 employees. So they're allowing each individual location to apply for the relief rather than having the parent organization apply. So that might be what he's asking.
Great. Also for the EIDL, excuse me, I only saw one application on the SBA website. Is it the same application for the loaning the grant?
Yes, the application is the same. So what happens is when you go into the EIDL website and you apply for the application, as you go through the application, there's going to be a box there that's going to say, would you like to be considered for the EIDL advance? You check that box and that automatically puts you into both programs.
This is from Tamara. Can you apply for both the economic injury loan, $10,000 in 3 days, and the PPP? I believe we answered this, but just we'll be applying for both. They're a nonprofit. Thank you.
Yeah, and so let me reiterate that everybody should be applying for both. When you get to the approval process, you could decide which one you want. You know, there may be a gap in one that you can cover on the other. So as long as you don't use it, like I said last time, for the same purpose, you don't use two loans for the same purposes, you should be fine.
All right.
This is from Dominic Presna. And again, I think this is getting to some of the concerns about the banks being ready. They've reached out to major commercial banks, but they seem hesitant and are unsure of the process. Does this mean no application should be filed today?
So let me just tell you, I understand there's a lot of concerns about that, and there are a lot of people asking that question. I mean, we've been dealing with it all day today. So there are changes being made as we're going along to make sure that we get more and more bank participations. So for example, yesterday, the interest rate on this loan was 0.5%. After discussing it with the lenders and the other people in the lending community, they decided to increase the interest rate to 1% to help the banks make a little bit more money on the loan. So this is the reason. These are things that are going on behind the scenes that people may not know of, but are being worked out. And hopefully, as more of these things become worked out, more funds will be available. So but let me just leave you with this really quick, is that I keep getting an update on what's going on with the loans. And the loans just came out today. So this is as of 1 p.m. today. We've already taken 3,998 paycheck protection loans submitted for $1.4 billion, and they came from over 400 lenders. So the system is just starting to get out there. I'm going to ask everybody to please be a little patient. I understand the times are very, very difficult, but I believe that the stuff will start to work itself out, and we'll be able to give more and more assistance to more and more small businesses.
Great.
That's great, John.
Just to piggyback on that for 1 second, I'm sure there are Bank of America borrowers on this group, but they reached out to our office in addition to some other banks that say the fastest way to get money out the door on their end, and this will largely start next week, is to prioritize clients with existing credit relationships and work with existing borrower clients first. So that's largely how they'll be triaging it. Which is why you should go to your trusted bank and lender first. If you're not in the borrower category, it may take a bit longer.
Thank you, Hector. This is from Jim Hio. How do we prove that we're spending 75% for our payroll?
So the way it'll work is your lending institution will take care of that with you. They'll ask you for documentation on how the bills have been paid, how the payroll's been paid out, and you'll be able to submit documentation to them. And that's the way the loan forgiveness will occur.
What are any new requirements that I should be aware of? This is from Michael Wynn, for a new business that started in 2020. Anything in particular, or?
I'm sorry.
New businesses do qualify for this. So if as long as they were in business as of February 15th, they do qualify. So if you're asking whether or not a new business qualifies for these programs, yes, they do. They don't have to be, there's no time frame. They don't have to be, the 1-year rule for this doesn't apply here when it comes to small businesses.
Got it.
Right.
And I'm going to skip some questions that we've sort of touched on already because I want to get as many as we can. How do we pay our rent with the PPP loan if they are only calculating it with our payroll?
So the whole purpose behind the Paycheck Protection Program is to get employees back to work and getting paid, okay? 25% of that can be used for rent. And that's where the EIDL loan comes into play. The EIDL loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, will be able to help you pay those reoccurring expenses that are occurring up because of lost income.
Great. Are there any loans or assistance available for nonprofits with over 500 employees? They have about 700.
So for what I've heard currently, they are trying to make some exceptions. So currently the answer is no, there are none. But they are trying to, like I said, they are trying to change things as they go along to try to get more and more businesses and not-for-profits eligible so that they can all get the assistance that they need. But currently the answer is no. But I did hear that question is something that they are working on.
Yeah, I heard that too, John. Once they determine where the outliers are, they may modify the program. That's what I heard.
With the PPP loan, if we're a self-employed independent contractor, can we make a loan and get forgiveness if we use the loan to make up our lost 1099 commission earnings?
Actually, they're going to start those applications on April 10th.
Yeah.
I believe they can.
And understand, none of these loans are for lost sales. These are only to help you cover your reoccurring costs that aren't being paid. That's the purpose of the loans, not to make up for lost sales.
This is from Joseph Batega. If a business has deferred salaries on the books, can they be listed as part of the payroll calculation?
You know, that's going to have to be, they're going to have to take that on an individual basis with their lender. There's a lot of issues that we'd have to discuss with that one.
I have a sole proprietor LLC and I work as a consultant for small businesses providing marketing strategies and ways to boost their sales. Which SBA financial aid seems most applicable for someone in my position?
So I would tell them to do two things. First, I would tell them to apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL loan at sba.gov/disaster. And as Sylvia said earlier, independent contractors, consultants, sole proprietors, they will be eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program on the 10th of this month.
This is a good question from Claudia Carucci. While we're waiting to hear back from any of these loans and there's no income coming in, because we were shut down, should employees try to apply for unemployment in the meantime?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. At this point in time, it makes eminent sense. And wow, because the applications themselves, what John just mentioned, the volume that took place, it may impact people severely if they don't.
Yeah, and Hector, maybe that's something we could just look into and double check on, and
Sure.
we'll send that up in a follow-up email.
Absolutely. And I know that one question the Small Business Committee has gotten is if a sole proprietor receives UI assistance before they're approved for SBA assistance, do they have to pay back their UI? And that is currently unclear, and I'm happy to update folks on that. I have the list of all of the registrants, and I'll include that in the information should we get an update.
From Cynthia Scarinci, is the average monthly payroll calculated including employee, is the average monthly payroll calculated including employee withholding tax? That is on gross wages?
Gross wages, correct.
Great, thank you. Feedback.
Kevin, I'm going to ask that we take one more question because I'm
You
going to have
got
another call.
Mhm. I believe, I'm just trying to make sure a lot of these have been, this could be the last one. Can you touch on minimum requirements for the PPP besides size under 500? And is the loan guaranteed to be forgiven if it's met these guidelines?
Well, the loan is forgiven as long as you use 75% of the loan to use it towards payroll for the next 8 weeks for your employee's salary. And what was the other part of that question, Kevin? I'm sorry. Is there another part to it?
No, I think you hit all of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, some of our panelists do have to go. Based on the volume and the attendance, we will be doing this again. In the meantime, please feel free to reach out to our office if your question was not answered. We will try to reach out to you as well, but if there's still a bunch of questions, understandably so. Feel free to call us. We are here to help, and we will definitely be doing this again, especially as new challenges arise. Thank you again to all our panelists for your time and your knowledge and your questions. And we will be in touch soon. All attendees will be getting a follow-up email with all contact information and everything there. So you'll be able to reply back in that email if your question wasn't answered, and we'll get back to you. If it's urgent, just give us a call at our office, which is 718-667-3313. Thank you again to everybody.
Thank you.
Kevin, for
Thank
having
you
us.
all. Don't forget to
Kevin.
check the websites. We have information on there with the bank locator that we talked about. So
Yes.
All right. Great,
And
everyone.
thank you to the Congressman also.
take care.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
the
guys.
Congressman. Sure. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys. See you.
Stay safe and be well,
You too, my dear.
Dean.